Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We do have good, bad, and crazy martinis for you, but first a quick addendum to yesterday's crazy and the supposed psyop for the DNC involving Taylor Swift and her relationship with Travis Kelce and the Super Bowl and everything else. According to Yahoo, which cites three people familiar with the matter, the Trump campaign wants to wage a quote-unquote holy war on Taylor Swift, especially if she ends up publicly backing the Democrats in the 2024 election. And based on her track record, Jim, if she gets involved at all, she's probably going to side with them. And not only is this a gigantic mistake with young voters, I don't know about you, Jim, but one of the areas where Trump really needs to make improvements, if he can, is with suburban women. And suburban moms might love Taylor Swift even more than their kids do. So this is not a winning political strategy. And after his comments about if anybody contributes to Nikki Haley from here on out, they're no longer welcome, he keeps taking steps that make it less and less likely that he's going to win.
Well, winning is much less important to Donald Trump than satisfying his ego on whatever is, on his mind on that day. It is not surprising me that Donald Trump is spending more time thinking about Taylor Swift and a, let's face it, very likely endorsement of Joe Biden. She endorsed Joe Biden back in 2020. I don't think anyone would be surprised or shocked that this would, come away at the similar decision with a rematch. He's spending a lot more time thinking about that than, say, Iranian militias, which we will talk about later in this podcast. And, Trump, basically rages against anybody who's not on his side and fumes and all that stuff. I would point out, you mentioned it's Yahoo. It's actually a Yahoo reprint or publication of an article that was originally in Rolling Stone. I don't know how many Trump associates talk to Rolling Stone, but they do list multiple folks. And again, this fits what we know about Trump and his past musings, I use that word loosely, on social media and things like that. So it's plausible that Trump is spending time talking about this. And as you mentioned, about the soccer moms, there's this perception that the Taylor Swift and the Swiftie fan base is a bunch of teenagers. But I think somebody did the demographic research and concluded the average Taylor Swift fan is like in her 30s. It is not a teeny bopper, very young people, pre-voting age demographic. I'm sure you can find teenagers who are big fans of Taylor Swift, but the Taylor Swift fan base extends well above age 18, well into, I suspect, Generation X. So I don't see why this is picking a dumb fight. Again, with a very popular figure that's always likely been a Democrat. We mentioned her endorsement of President back in 2018. And you'd think that a guy who's right now the Republican frontrunner and very likely to be the nominee would have bigger things to worry about. But apparently not, Greg. Apparently not.
And, she's been around a long time, and that's why her fan base does skew a little bit older than some people might think. I mean, I think it was in the aughts when Kanye ran up on stage and took the mic away from her, right?
Greg, I was going to say, she was having disagreements with Kanye West back when Kanye was a Democrat.
Yes,
as opposed to he was briefly MAGA, and now he's just, I believe, a cross between just the raging, rabid anti-Semite and wearing a mask like Cobra Commander.
The Kardashians do a real number on your mental health, but his was already headed in that direction between his George Bush doesn't care about black people and his move with Taylor Swift there on stage. And at that time, I guess if you had broken it down on political grounds, most people on the right probably would have sided with her. So it all comes full circle, I guess. All right, well, let's talk about our real good martini today, and that is that the House of Representatives has moved closer in committee to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Now, you might remember last year we were pretty frustrated. I think this was one of the first votes inside the speakership of Mike Johnson. There was a floor vote on impeaching Mayorkas. It did not pass. There were a number of Republicans that voted against it, with several of them saying this didn't go through the regular order. If we're going to do something as drastic as impeachment, that needs to happen. But now the House Homeland Security Committee considered its resolution claiming Mayorkas has committed high crimes and misdemeanors for his handling of the southern border. This is from the CNN story. He, of course, argues otherwise, and up until the point where Joe Biden about a week ago said the border wasn't under control, Mayorkas always insisted that it was. I mean, it's up to the president, of course, to enforce the laws, but Alejandro Mayorkas has done absolutely nothing to effectively stem the tide, and he's only made excuses and really bald-faced lied to the country for 3 years now. So I think it's high time for him to go. If it does pass the House, he won't be convicted in the Senate, but I think it sends an important message that dereliction of duty matters.
Greg, today is one of those rare days where I find myself in disagreement with the Wall Street Journal editorial board's assessment on this. Their lead editorial today, quote, "Impeaching Mayorkas achieves nothing," unquote. And I don't think it achieves nothing. They're correct that this, as you mentioned, this is not likely to succeed in the Senate. That Biden, if for some reason Mayorkas were to be, forced out of his position as Secretary of Homeland Security, there's very little reason we would get a dramatically different philosophy from the next Secretary of Homeland Security that Biden appointed. You could well argue that the real problem here is not just Mayorkas, but it's the President of the United States, and that really the best remedy to this is to replace the President of the United States. No, I get all that. That's all fair and legitimate. But I also believe that if you screw up on a colossal scale, not just your routine gaffes, not just your routine, wasting money, but if you absolutely fail in your duties in the way that Mayorkas has over the past 3 years, and if you continue to insist, no, the border is secure. Biden just the other day blurted out the border is not secure and it hasn't been secured for a decade, which, by the way, also goes back to when he was vice president, if you go back. But if that's the case, then Mayorkas has failed in his job. And I think it's perfectly legitimate for the House of Representatives to say, you, Cabinet Secretary, you have failed in your job, not just routine, regular mistakes that we're used to in Washington, but if you've done such a dereliction of duty, you have absolutely failed, and you have insisted that it's working, you've insisted that things are getting better, they're not getting better. We have more contacts at the border than ever before. We have more gotaways at the border than ever before. I think it's perfectly legitimate for the House to say, you can't stay in that job. You can't keep doing that job because you've screwed up on too big a scale. And this is where I part ways with the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. Now, again, is this likely to remove Mayorkas? No. Would I prefer? The simplest answer would be to have a different president and a different Secretary of Homeland Security who just had completely different philosophies towards this issue. But that's not an option right now. Not an option until January 2025. So the next best option now is to do this, to send this signal, this shot across the bow, and to put Democrats on record as saying, no, Mayorkas is doing a fine job. And they're not really doing that. They're mostly saying, this is an inappropriate use of the impeachment power, blah, blah, blah. I think that when you make when you fail to perform your duties on a scale this big, it's perfectly legitimate to say for the House of Representatives to say to the presidential cabinet, that's too big a screw up, you're out of here.
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, this is national security we're talking about, the human trafficking, the fentanyl, and all we've heard is excuses and direct policy changes that have made this far more likely to happen, starting literally day one, and executive orders Biden signed the second he took office. It was just absolutely egregious, completely predictable, and this guy has gaslighted the United States all the way along. Usually, even if they're not good at their job, they say, okay, they serve at the pleasure of the president as long as they're confirmed by the Senate and so forth. But this goes beyond the pale. Well, let's talk about biooptimizers, because when it comes to getting a good night's sleep and making sure you cast that vote to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, you want to have a clear mind to do so. Magnesium is really important for getting good sleep, particularly if you struggle with that. And the best place to get it is through Magnesium Breakthrough by Biooptimizers. And right now you can get 10% off any order at biooptimizers.com/martini, and then also use the promo code Martini.
There are a lot of magnesium supplements out there, but you got to look at the label, because a whole lot of them will just give you 1 or 2 forms of magnesium. But Magnesium Breakthrough contains all 7 forms of magnesium, and it's designed to help calm your mind, help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Magnesium Breakthrough can also help improve your digestion, support muscle recovery, and support healthy bone density.
Do yourself a favor and make Magnesium Breakthrough part of your daily routine this year so you can get the vitality you need to conquer your dreams. Go to biooptimizers.com/martini and enter the promo code Martini to get 10% off any order. Again, that's biooptimizers.com/martini. biooptimizers.com/martini. I'm on to our bad martini now, and I'm sure these Iranian-backed militants in the Middle East would not like me to use the word chutzpah, but you gotta pretty much use that word with the latest message that they're sending to the United States. This is courtesy of USA Today. An Iraq-based Iran-backed militant group suspected of participating in the drone strike that killed 3 U.S. soldiers in Jordan announced Tuesday it was suspending attacks, not ending, suspending attacks on U.S. military installations in Iraq and Syria. Abu Hussein al-Hamidawi, the Kataib Hezbollah, that's the name of the group, Secretary General, said the malicious fighters would adopt a temporary passive defense and warned against hostile American action that President Biden said on Tuesday he had already decided on. And so they say, we hear threats coming from American officials. We tell them they have already tested us, and now we know one another. No threat will be left unanswered. So the idea that we're the aggressors and we're the perpetrators here is quite laughable. This is kind of, there's a saying out there where the first word is vulgar, Jim, and the last 3 words are around and find out. We're to the find out stage here, and they don't like it very much.
Yeah. Now, today's Morning Jolt goes through, I had seen a Washington Post House editorial that said that we should not strike Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps targets in Iran, but we should target them elsewhere in the Middle East. And I don't know if I agree with that, but I do think, okay, I was like, all right, let's see where else they are in the Middle East. And surprise, surprise, they're all over the Middle East, just an exceptional number of them. One of the facts that just kind of jumped out at me, we've all heard, oh, Iran's got forces in Syria. There's a Syrian think tank that kind of did a survey or kind of, did try to track every single Iranian military site within the territory of Syria, came up with 570. Now, this was done in June 2023. It's possible that number has gone up a little or gone down a little. I don't think it has changed significantly in the past half year or so. And so there is no shortage of targets in there. In Iraq, you mostly see the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps operating through these militia groups. Kataib Hezbollah is one of them. The Badr organization, the Asab al-Haq militias are other ones. I'm not going to go through all of them, but basically this one, Kataib Hezbollah, is like, hey, we're done fighting American troops. We're not going to shoot at those troops anymore. So as far as we're concerned, fight's over. No point to hitting us again. My colleague Noah Rothman kind of looks at that and says, this is very much the, hey, America, we know you're getting ready to strike back. We're going to say we're not going to hit you anymore. So that gets us off your target list, right? It should not get them off the target list, but I suppose only time will tell with a president who, again, this attack took place, was it Sunday or Monday? We are recording this midday Wednesday or near midday Wednesday. Nothing, as far as we know, no U.S. Retaliatory action has occurred, or at least none that is, publicly visible yet. We will see what the Biden administration does. Biden told reporters yesterday that he's decided what to do. And I'm sitting there thinking, don't tell us you've decided, just decide and just do it, and then tell us what you've done. But we will see. I certainly hope that it takes more than just saying, hey, we're not fighting anymore to get you off the Pentagon target list.
Jim, as you know, I am the youngest child in my family, so I'm the littlest brother. And I had a pretty strong tendency to annoy my middle brother when I was young, and he used to resolve that with fists generally. And so by the time he had me cornered, I was kind of acting like these people. Oh, yeah, okay. No, I want.
Fight's over. Okay, yeah. All right, you win.
And guess what? I didn't stop doing it. Well, at least not for a while yet. So ultimately, you need to land a few punches to get the message across. So, all right, let's talk about 4Patriots, because you can get some great deals right now at 4patriots.com/martini. You can get great deals, including 50% off plant-based protein survival food kits. There's also the Sauna Wrap therapeutic blanket, regularly $499, now just $99.20. But in addition to all that, you, of course, have the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. Fantastic to have during a blackout. Charges devices for longer in a blackout than other methods than solar power. Has double the capacity and more peak power than before. It's perfect for having your fridge, your freezer, and your medical devices working when your power goes out. Don't forget about the survival food kits as well. And you can find all of that by visiting 4patriots.com/martini to see this week's discounts and deals before they are gone, and get free shipping on orders over $97. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to the number 4patriots.com/martini. That's 4patriots.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And this one doesn't necessarily have a strictly political bent to it, but it kind of does filter into the society that we're evolving into here. And as we get increasingly secular and increasingly technological and AI is coming in here, you've got a lot of people who think they're going to remake the world. We see it at the World Economic Forum. You got a lot of people in the tech world, particularly out in Silicon Valley, who really believe that our world is all messed up. It's time to ditch the old traditional model and start from scratch. Well, there's this very successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur named Brian Johnson who was on a podcast recently, and he's taking this to an extreme level. We should first of all point out he's trying to live until the 25th century. So basically, he's trying to make it so that he never dies, which is always the sign of someone who...
How many great stories have happy endings with, because whenever you, the protagonist, chases immortality, the legends, the myths across all these different cultures, they always end with the guy winning immortality and everything turns out fine, right?
We all know the only key to immortality is to drink from the grail, but you can't take the grail from the grail room after you've picked the right one. As Donovan found out, you better not pick the wrong one. But no, in reality, we're all going to die. That's one of the assurances in life. And but this guy, Brian Johnson, not only thinks he's going to live another few hundred years or perhaps in perpetuity, but he also wants to basically throw out everything in society from morals to even human thought. Here's his clip.
We're right now in a moment, like the last moment where like things kind of have been how they have been, but they're about to change radically. And in this new future, we can't predict what's going to happen. We no longer have that ability. And so we're living in a zeroth world. And so Gen Zero is a group of multi-ethnic, multinational people who rise up and they say, we are willing to courageously step into the future. And we're willing to divorce or open to divorce from ourselves all human norms, all human customs, all human thought. And we're willing to say we're wide open about everything. Absolute blank slate.
How do you end human thought? I don't know anything. This makes so much sense, but it's
thought.
Pure arrogance, absolute pure arrogance. It's, in my estimation, it's a futile effort to replace God. They want to create their own old moral system and whatever else they want to pursue here. But what do you make of this guy and more people like him who think they can just completely reinvent society?
Greg, there is a meme that goes around. I can't remember the precise wording of it, but it's always something like, this sci-fi author says, I wrote my book, The Torture Chamber or The Chamber of Horrors, or something, in order to warn people about the dangers of technology. And then about a year or two later, some tech bro out in Silicon Valley says, thanks to AI, we can finally build the torture chamber. We can finally build the chamber of tortures. All these things that are told as cautionary tales get interpreted as how-to manuals by certain folks out in Silicon Valley. My understanding, Greg, is that one of the hot trends, I should point out for a couple of years now out in California, has been microdosing with hallucinogens such as LSD. The idea being that, if you take it in a small enough dose, it doesn't make you believe that the ceiling is dripping and monsters are out there and all kinds of stuff like that, but it actually makes you more creative, more expands your mind, et cetera, et cetera. Greg, call me crazy, but I'm not so sure this guy is microdosing anymore. I think he's probably macrodosing. And the other thing I just kind of think is like, again, you go and work in Silicon Valley and in this tech industries because you believe in the power of technology to make people's lives better, innovation, progress, et cetera, et cetera. But it's very interesting that this guy's idea of something new and terrific is to not have any connection to anything human. Right? There's almost something a little self-loathing in that. There's almost something that's a little bit like, I hate being a human being and I want to evolve into something better and divorce ourselves from all human norms. I thought regular divorce was controversial enough. Divorcing from all human norms, like opposing cannibalism's a human norm. Do we really need to get rid of that one? Is that, treat people well, like that's there was a guy about 2,000 years ago told us to do that. I'd like to think that was a human norm. I understand if you feel like that one's not practiced nearly enough. All human customs, really? Because I kind of like the 4th of July. I like Christmas. We got to get rid of that. Is that that's all that kind of stuff. All human thought. And again, As I said, I think this guy may have cut off all of his own human thought in this process. But be a blank slate. Why would you want to be that? Because when you're a blank slate, anybody can come along and write anything on there. And you might get that old saying about the 10,000 monkeys banging away at typewriters. You might get, if you're a blank slate, what comes next might be something terrific, or what comes next might be something terrible. The disciples and the Nazis were both human beings. Human beings are capable of all kinds of things. So the idea of I want to be a blank slate and whatever comes next, no. So and again, the idea of so what is the idea that AI would program us to be? I don't see the upside of this, but I do think it's kind of interesting. There are people who have considerable amount of power and influence in our world who look at this, and as I said, at the heart of it is a deep-rooted despising being human beings. I didn't really ever think I'd be in a situation where I'd have to break this to people, but you are a human being and you're always going to stay a human being. I know you want to be, maybe someday if there's real great advances in technology, you can be a cyborg. I know there are people who would argue that once you start putting artificial parts into yourself, you become a cyborg. I kind of wonder if a pacemaker counts as that, whether contact lenses count as that. But the idea is ultimately you're always going to be this. So we should probably try to be the best humans we can be, instead of being absolutely convinced that we can reinvent human nature, create a new form of man, the new Soviet man, and or immanentize the eschaton. As William F. Buckley used to say, this effort of building God's kingdom on earth, it's up there, it's meant to be there, waiting for us as a reward for trying to do the right thing down here. Earth is always going to be flawed. Earth is always going to have humans. So just try to do the best you can, instead of this idea of we're going to wipe everything about humanity, that we're just going to wipe it away and be blank slates and put our faith in whatever comes next.
Well, I would say that God sent his son to save us because we are completely incapable of doing any of that on our own. But in terms of the political aspect of this, I didn't think there was originally a political aspect, but the more I think about this, I think it is, once you started talking about how people despise the fact that they're human themselves. In addition to the militant secularism that's emerging here, you've also got at least one generation, maybe two now, that have been told it's your fault that the climate's about to implode. Your ancestors stole this land from people. You're oppressors, or you're oppressed, and all this other stuff. And all of a sudden, these people don't feel so great about themselves anymore or the future of their species. So maybe it's just complete hubris, but I think, constantly telling people that they're destroying everything and making everything worse is having an impact on the way people think about themselves and on their future. So well done, lefties.
These people who hate being human beings, the problem is not that you're a human being. The problem is that you're that particular human being. Your problem is not your humanity. Your problem is probably the past choices you have made and the past decisions that you have made. And the real solution to all this stuff is to try to make better choices. Now, you're a human being. You're going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But just trying to be a better person could actually solve all of these things that you think are just, let's rewrite the existence of humanity rather than just, trying to do the right thing a little bit more often.
Well, thank you for coming to our talk on this. I'm sure
the philosophical midweek edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Maybe this is what happens when you have your fourth one.
Yeah, just kind of raising the red flag and letting you know these people are out there and they do exist. And they've got a little bit of clout too, which is kind of scary. But anyway, Jim, have a great day, and we'll talk again tomorrow. See you Thursday.
See you Thursday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos, Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please subscribe to the Three Martini Lunch if you don't already, and tell your friends about us as well. Thank you also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play Three Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific Wednesday and join us again on Thursday for the next Three Martini Lunch.